Yo, 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 mic check 1, 2. Hello, hello.
Mic check 1, 2. Yeah, I almost did the whole video with the internal microphone instead of my nice microphone, so that would have been problematic. I got my cup of coffee here. It's Tutorial Tuesday. At the end here, you're going to have another one of those listening tests where you can compare different Rhodes pianos. We call chords in an order a chord progression, right? Hearing a chord progression evokes a mood in a listener. And depending upon how you would describe that mood, you want to pair that mood with an instrument that makes sense. For instance, if the chords are really scary or they're really dark and sinister, it would be great if the instrument's tone was dark, scary, and sinister to match the mood of the progression. I guess it would be humorous, and it could be kind of cool and like a contrast if you took a really scary melody and played it back on a really like happy, like child's instrument or something. That might happen in horror movies where you hear something creepy played back on a children's toy. But for the most part, we want the instrument to match the chord progression, because different instruments are capable of producing different timbres and tones. Certain chord progressions are going to sound great played back off certain instruments. She's so curious, she wanted to see what I was doing. So in my last video, Tutorial 6, we created a chord pack. And the first thing I did is I just played a bunch of chords over a reference tone. All I did was loop a perfect C as a sine wave. I transposed it down -5 semitones, so it'd be a G. And then in the background with it looping, I played these types of chords. And the next thing I did is I selected the moments that I liked the best and I marked them as red. And I muted all the clips that I didn't want to take. So the things that remained were only chords that I wanted to resample. Finally, I was left with these nice block chords that I then lined up along the grid. So they'd be evenly spaced. And when I bounce them to tape, it's easier to chop them up afterwards, because these are going to be used in Ableton Slicer, or these are going to be chopped to the pads. I consolidated those chords together so they would be one long clip. If you select all of them and you do Ctrl+J, it then creates one long clip so you can view them all at once. If you do Ctrl+Shift+E, it brings up this menu to Export MIDI Clip As. So here you can see I can save MIDI Clip As. I click Desktop and I have my own MIDI Originals file. So now I can drag and drop this MIDI file into my project file. I won't click Import Signature and Time Data. I'm going to use the data of this project. So I'm going to click No. So why is this useful? Why is this important? Well, now I can reuse this MIDI information and copy paste it to new instruments and hear how it sounds played through different keyboards. And that way we can decide which instrument's timbre is most appropriate to play back that chord progression. And then I can resample it in new ways. So I still came up with the original chords. I actually played it on the keyboard. This is really useful because it means you don't have to dial in the tone first. You don't have to be tone chasing and try and create the perfect sound. You can create the chord progression first and then dial in the perfect tone after. So out of these 25 chords, for our listening test, we're going to focus on these 4. And in Tutorial 6, I recorded them to and from tape. They sound like this. Now using these 4 chords, let's hear how they sound on different Rhodes instruments. The Rhodes that I've been using so far has been Scarby Mark I in Contact. You can download this for free in their package. I believe it's called Complete Start or Complete Select. It's free on the Native Instruments website. These were the 4 chords that we used in Tutorial 6, so I thought just for continuity's sake we would reuse those here. All right, great. So I hope that you get the gist of this here. The idea is to record something with a MIDI keyboard. Afterwards, save the MIDI information and then copy paste that MIDI information to new instruments. Mess around with the new instruments, dial in the tone that you want, and then resample that audio in a production. MIDI is super useful. I feel like anytime I write something in MIDI, I'm investing in future sessions. It's really easy to remix. You can transpose notes up and down. You can still mess with note lengths. You haven't committed anything to audio yet. So for that reason, I really like to work in MIDI at the start and then render to audio towards the end. The longer you wait to commit to audio, the more time you still have to make changes, retroactive changes. We're not worried about the sound of the instrument. We're worried about what the instrument is actually playing. If we can program that first and get that out of the way, that's way easier to do. That's half the battle. So for the sake of time here, I'm just going to repeat the same process. I'm going to duplicate the track by doing Command-D. Then I'm going to take all this MIDI information, kind of move it over a little bit so they wouldn't play at the same time. I'm going to delete whatever instrument I have here. I'm going to load in a new instrument. It sounds like this. Please let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I hope that this is useful for you. So we're just going to be comparing the raw Rhodes sound. Velocity, yes, I'm going to keep between 48 and 69, just so it keeps it nice and controlled and there's not like random leaps and fluctuations. I'm also going to keep the pitch at 0, so we're not going to transpose the progression up or down. The question is, which instrument's timbre is best suited to this chord progression's mood?